this is as inflation is sharply spiking, and we said it in the magazine that this is really real. She said, quote, I believe it's transitory and, quote, a small risk, and that inflation will only be, quote, temporary. Now, if you were so wrong about that, why should I believe you about this?
Good
well,
point.
Of course you're supposed to believe me. I'm a member of the club, and all we do is spew out crap, and you're supposed to swallow it. And I love the way they talk, and they only have no emotion in any word that they say.
Yeah, it's funny
you keep on talking like this, because I know what I'm talking about, and you are supposed. Who are you talking to? We're talking to the American public, and they swallow all the crap that we shove out there. So
they
you
all
swallow
talk
it
that
too.
way. They all talk that way, and they use 6-syllable words. And the congressmen and senators pretend they understand what they're saying, and then they politely applaud them, and then they go back to their offices at Treasury, at the Federal Reserve, and do more damage to the economy. The only way to have prosperity is to have freedom. And freedom means freedom from the government, which means freedom from the government controls of economic activity. The Constitution does not authorize the Congress to set the value of the dollar. That is set by supply and demand. When it's backed by gold, they can't just print dollars. But even that doesn't work. What did FDR do when he came into office? He was a president for 2 weeks. He signed an executive order requiring everybody to sell their gold to the federal government. One of his advisors said, you're in the executive branch. You can't write the laws. All right, we'll get the Congress to do it. 2 months later, the Congress had done it. So the government bought gold for $25 an ounce, sold it to the Federal Reserve for $35 an ounce. It was an act of theft. But the Fed in those days didn't want to expand the money supply unless it had gold behind it. Today, it doesn't care. There's no gold behind it. The meaning of gold is useless. The meaning of freedom is useless. The meaning of an unregulated commercial transaction is useless. You know, if these people, Yellen and Jay Powell, had their way, there'd be one world currency. I don't know what you'd call it. And it would be digital. And thereby they would know what everybody owned and what everybody owed. And they could control what your digital wallet, your digital pocketbook, your digital bank book, whatever you want to call it, they could control all that. There's nothing the central bankers would love more than that. Oh, they need more assets in Africa. We'll take them from New York. I mean, they would be able to do that. It would be a dream for them. And we're getting closer and closer to that because we have it in the United States. She, as the head of the Fed, her successor, Jay Powell, as the current head of the Fed, control the value of currency by adding to it exponentially every time we turn around and making it more expensive to borrow. They don't believe in the free market. They don't believe in personal freedom. They don't even believe in the Constitution that they swore to uphold.
The Federal Reserve, they don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in the Constitution. Yep, with everything you're saying. You know, let's go back to two things. Number one is that Yellen came from she was the former Fed head, and now she's our Treasury Secretary. How stupid can people be not to see who's running our government? Here, our Treasury Secretary of the Treasury formerly was the head of the Federal Reserve. They're running the show right in front of our eyes.
Yes.
She has no right being there.
Well, this is the government we have today. This is the hard left big government of Joe Biden. I mean, Jay Powell is a Trump appointee. The mindset is the same. No matter.
We're going to take a break now. We've got a lot more going on. And this is why you subscribe to the Trends Journal.
The Trends Journal, the best investment you could make, because it's the best investment into your mind, and it can change how you look at the world.
Over the last 30 years, Gerald Celente has been more accurate about predicting what would be happening than anyone else I'm aware of.
The Trends Journal is one of the greatest sources of information, and and it really is. You're predicting these things well ahead of time. I would encourage everyone to go grab the latest copy.
Been a Trends Journal subscriber for 20 years. I just have to commend you. What you guys have put together in your latest Trends Journal, there's nothing like this out there.
Sir, everything that you predicted about the economy, you were absolutely right. So I have followed you all this time. So please take a look at the Trends Journal.
You correctly forecast that the Fed would hike rates quite aggressively, correctly said that initially gold and silver would drop as the Fed starts to raise rate to 1.5% and above. When we spoke last, Bitcoin was around 49,000. You said you expect to drop, and if it drops below 30, 35, then it could really drop.
Trends Journal, which I would encourage people to go and check out. It's actually a 200-page document, pure data-driven analysis.
Gerald Celente, the top trends forecaster in the world. Gerald, you had an interesting call back in September of last year. You said gold had bottomed, which is exactly what happened. And here we are, and we're above $1,900.
Subscribe to the Trends Journal. Read history before it happened at trendsjournal.com.
The mindset of the appointee, Janet Yellen, Jay Powell, is the same no matter what president's appointing them. Powell was appointed by Trump. There were some free market-oriented Republican senators who voted to confirm him. But once he gets in there, it's control, control, control. You know who should run the Fed? Ron Paul.
Yep.
There's somebody that should run the Fed. He'd shut it down in a week.
That's right. Yep. And the Fed, that's his campaign. And again, think about it. Since the Federal Reserve was created by another murderous piece of one of your alumni there before you, Woodrow Wilson, how much has the value of the dollar declined since 1913?
I don't know the number, but I'm sure it's an astronomical number.
It's down about 96%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. His name has been removed from everything at Princeton because of his racist views, not because of his destruction of the economy, not because of World War I, not because of the federal income tax, not because of the 16th and 17th Amendments, not because of the administrative state, not because of the Federal Reserve, but because he was a white supremacist. Let's face it. But arguably the worst president in history. I don't think we would have had an FDR had we not had a Woodrow Wilson. And of course, famously,
how about Lincoln? How many people did he kill?
Well, Lincoln killed 750,000 people. Lincoln was the first head of state in the history of the world to target civilians, and the first head of state in the history of the world to target civilians of his own country. Remember when General Sherman marched through Georgia and South Carolina, he attacked civilians, not the Confederate Army, but civilians. And Lincoln, of course, not only waged war on civilians, not only waged war on the states, which is the definition of treason in the Constitution.